Hi, listeners. We hope today's episode leaves you feeling inspired and ready to make important shifts in your life. To hear more from this author and many others, check out the Empower You Unlimited audio mobile app. You'll find thousands of audiobooks, guided meditations and visualizations, exclusive live lectures, and more to empower you to change your life for the better. Whether you want to find spiritual connection, heal your body, improve your sleep, or gain motivation to reach your goals, the tools you need are waiting right now in the app. You can listen free for 14 days when you start a trial today. Apple users go to heyhouse.com/Apple, and Android users go to heyhouse.com/Google. That's heyhouse.com/Apple for Apple devices and heyhouse.com/Google for Android.
Did you hear the latest news from Hay House? We're launching a new podcast. The You Can Heal Your Life podcast helps you take a step back from life's stress and anxieties with life-changing insights and real-world solutions. Join us twice a week and sometimes more as we connect with world-renowned experts to discuss topics ranging from careers to crystals, happiness to health, money to manifesting, and everything in between. Subscribe to You Can Heal Your Life now wherever you get your podcasts.
Let Dr. Wayne W. Dyer take you on a voyage of discovery, where you can begin to tap into the amazing manifesting powers that you possess. As a loyal podcast listener, Hay House would like to offer the ebook version of Wishes Fulfilled, Mastering the Art of Manifesting, to you for free for a limited time to help you learn how to obtain what you truly desire. You're invited to open yourself up to a new way of experiencing life by imagining exactly what you would like to manifest for yourself. By using your imagination and practicing the art of assuming the feelings of your wishes being fulfilled, you will discover that you possess the ability to become the person you were destined to be. Get your free Wayne Dyer ebook now at heyhouse.com/manifest. That's heyhouse.com/manifest.
Welcome to the Dr. Wayne Dyer radio podcast. Discover the wisdom and remarkable insights of Dr. Dyer, world-renowned spiritual teacher and foremost authority on how the power of your mind creates your world.
Hello, everybody, and thanks for joining the show today. Wishes Fulfilled with Dr. Wayne Dyer. And the phone lines are just opening up here, so if you'd like to talk to Dr. Dyer, jump on the phone, 866-254-1579. That's toll-free in the U.S. or Canada. And then outside the U.S., you just dial the U.S. country code, then 760-918-4300. And Dr. Wayne Dyer is joining us now from Maui. And how's it going?
Fine. Going fine. Just came out of yoga. Did a yoga class this morning.
That's great.
And, yeah, it feels really good. I have an announcement to make that I wrote a book several years ago, back in the 90s. It was called A Promise is a Promise. And it was the story of a woman who was taking care of her daughter who was in a coma. It was about the woman, her name was Kay O'Bara, and she was taking care of her daughter. Her daughter slipped into a coma on the 3rd of January in 1970 when she was 17 years old. She was a diabetic, and she had taken an oral form of insulin, and she got the flu, and then and she vomited up all of her insulin, and so she slipped into this coma. And as she was slipping into the coma, she said to her mother, "You won't leave me, will you? You won't leave me." And the last words her mother said to her, she said, "No, I will never leave you. I promise." And a promise is a promise. So I read about her. It was 25 years after that, in 1995, that I read a story about her in the newspaper down in Florida at my home. And I was just so touched by this woman's selfless dedication to her daughter and living up to her promise that she had actually sat next to her and put her into her home and would feed her through a tube and so on, and refused to have life support removed from her because she knew that she would starve to death, and she just couldn't bring herself to do that. And so she stayed in the coma, and the mother just slept in a chair next to her for 25 years. And then I got to know the family. I sent them a copy of one of my books that I had written, a book called Real Magic, and went down to visit them in Miami a lot and spent a lot of time with them, and decided to write this book and to have all of the proceeds, all of the profits, all of the royalties and everything go directly to the family to help them with it. And then Kay died about, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and meanwhile Eduarda was still in the coma. And her sister, Colleen, who had been incarcerated, and she had gotten herself addicted to some kind of drugs. I'm not sure what they were, but she had gotten herself into trouble with the law. And when Kay got very sick, she came out of jail, and she just felt that Eduarda had saved her life, her sister's life. And then after Kay died, Colleen took care of her up until the day before Thanksgiving. And then Colleen called me, and she said I was the first person that she called. And Eduarda passed away on I think the 20th of November. It might have been the 21st at 7:15 in the morning, which is the middle of the night here, when she called and told me. So it's just, so she was in a coma from 1970 until 2012.
Wow.
So, and she was almost 60 years old. She was 58 or 59 years old, and they had taken care of her since she was a teenager. And there were many amazing stories about this woman. One time my son, Sands, who was about 11 or 12 at the time, was taking a shower, and he came running out of the shower with a towel wrapped around him and said, Mom, Dad, you're not going to believe it. I saw Eduarda. She came into the bathroom, and I saw her in my shower, and there were other people who had reported these kinds of visitations from her and had done healings with her and so on. So I wrote about a lot of those things in the book. It's called A Promise is a Promise. And, but anyway, a lot of people have asked me about her and so on, but, she left this earthly plane. And Colleen, who has taken care of her now for the last 5 or 6 years, we're talking 24/7 here. This is, someone who has to be cared for continuously. And, she just couldn't believe that she wasn't still alive. She just thought that she was just resting. When the nurse, they had a nurse that would come in, 3 or 4 times a week. She came in and said, no, she finally passed in the middle of the night. So I think it might be the longest anybody has ever stayed in a coma and stayed alive.
Wow. No, I've never heard of that, of someone lasting that long in that state.
43 years.
Wow.
42 years.
And just the family taking care of her for so long, that's just incredible.
Just an incredible display of unconditional love and a commitment to living up to a promise, because Medicare or Medicaid or whatever it is wouldn't provide for it, wouldn't allow, for some reason the funding wasn't going to be allowed unless she was in a hospital, and they wouldn't put her in a hospital because they just felt that they wouldn't be there in contact with them. So we used to go to her home all the time, and my daughter would sing for them, and we would all just talk. And I always swore that Colleen or that Eduarda would know when I was there. I would just sense a smile from her, and an amazing story. It's so anyway, and that book, the book is still out there, and of course all of the proceeds still go to the family, and I'm going to be helping them with the funeral and all of that, because they have absolutely no money. They just depended upon contributions. That's the only way they were able to sustain it and keep the food and so on. They had a doctor. His name was Dr. Chaikin, and he never charged for any of the service that he offered. For his, just a beautiful man who never charged them anything. But we were always doing fundraising for them. At many of my speeches, I would tell her story and just leave a little box on the stage, and people would come and put money in, and we would always make sure that she got it. And anyway, so it was kind of an interesting morning to
get that call, totally unexpected.
Yeah, and they were such a big part of my life. In fact, in my book that I'm writing now, I can see clearly now, I tell the story of what just to be able to be around people who are so selfless and who give so much I remember when Kay had her birthday, and I gave her a set of a pearl necklace that cost a few $1,000s, and she just couldn't bring herself to keep them. I mean, she just kept insisting, no, I have to. This is for Eduardo. I'm gonna sell them and all of that. And I said, no, you're not selling these. Okay, whatever it was. Just anyway, they were just a beautiful, beautiful family, the O'Bara family. So many prayers go out there.
What
for
a lesson for us about keeping your promises.
Yeah, it was one of my first books with Hay House.
I'm feverishly searching the Hay House site right now
and
to
it was
see
the
if
first
it's still
book
there.
There it definitely is. It's now out in paperback. It was out in hardcover, but it was the first book. It was the first time for me that I had, any writing that I'd ever done or any royalties that I'd ever received or any profits from my writing, I always I invested or I made a part of gave to my family and things like this. This was the first time that I took this God-given talent that I've been given, the ability to write, and devoted it to writing for somebody else and having all of the proceeds and everything go to them. And it really was one of those moments of shifting in my life where I wasn't doing something for me, for Wayne Dyer, and what could come my way. But I was, and I remember going away and renting a place to stay. I stayed for about a month, and I interviewed Kay and everybody associated with it and listened to all of the recordings. But it was one of the most pleasurable writing experiences, maybe the most pleasurable writing experience I've ever had, because it was all about giving. It was I knew that every single thing that I was doing here and devoting this amount of time and so on to was in the category of just offering and serving and doing something not because of what's in it for me, but how I might serve someone else. It's that I've spoken many times about the mantra of the ego is always more, and what's in it for me, what's in it for me. And the mantra of the higher self, the highest self, is how may I serve? What may I do and keep myself out of it? And that was one of the beginnings for me of putting much more of my emphasis in my life on serving rather than on thinking about what I might get for it.
Wow, that's a beautiful
Eduardo
story.
She was a great teacher, and so was Kay. But you have to imagine, Diane, about having a daughter that's in a coma from the time that she's 17 years old and a senior in high school, and staying next to her and sitting up in a chair for 25 years and never getting a night's sleep in a bed because she had to be turned and she had to be fed every 3 hours and given her medicine and so on to keep her alive.
I can't even imagine that. How many times that she'd want to just give up and...
Yeah,
you can't imagine what she felt.
Yeah, there was no giving up in her. She was I had many wonderful evenings and many meals and so on, and many wonderful times over in that room with Eduardo lying there and talking to her and singing to her and bringing gifts and so on. So every year in March in her birthday, she would have this party, and people would come because I put it on TV, and in fact I told Oprah about it. So Oprah came down and interviewed her quite a few years ago when she had her own TV show, a daily show, and she put her on there, and so the world was really knowing about her, and people would fly from all over the world to come and see her, and many people felt that they had spiritual experiences, and Kay was absolutely convinced that Eduardo would, when everyone else would go off to sleep, that her spirit would leave and go out and do healing work and things like that. And I know for certain that my son saw her because he wasn't the kind of kid, and he still isn't. He's 25 years old now, but I think when he was a young boy, who believed in any of this stuff, but boy, he came running out of there and named her and said that she was there. So,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I did find the book on the Hay House website. It's available, and it's on sale right now for 20% off.
Is it?
Yes. Yeah. So for $9.56, you can add this one to your collection.
Read the story. It's a wonderful story. And when you're buying it, know that the royalties and the proceeds and all of that all will go to helping get Colleen. She's lost her mother now. Her father passed away about 3 or 4 years into the coma. he just couldn't deal with it. It was just such a struggle for him to. But the mother stayed with it, and she passed away in her sleep a few years ago. And beautiful Colleen, who, when I talked to her the other morning, she was sobbing, and she was saying, "You don't understand, Wayne." She said, "You just don't understand. She saved my life." She said, "I was using drugs, and I was stealing, and I was in trouble, and all of that, and she gave me a reason to live, to serve her and to take care of her." And she said, and then she was going through all of this inner pain about, I wonder if maybe I didn't do something right. Maybe I didn't put her medicine in right. Maybe I hope I didn't do anything to cause her to, so, yeah, beautiful
well,
story.
that'll bring that story back to light, and people can check it out and read it for themselves. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's it. I wanted to make that announcement.
I'm definitely thankful, for what I have after hearing that.
Yeah, you might want to read that. It's a wonderful story. You can read it in just a few hours. My wife actually wrote a chapter in there as well. It's the first time she'd ever published anything.
Wow. Well, we'll have people check that out. A promise is a promise.
A promise is a promise, right. Okay.
And we still have some time for calls. You want to
grab
let's
some
do that.
People? Yes, I'd love to.
Let's see. Where should we go first? Let's go start at line number 1. Let's go to Jackie in Philadelphia. Hi, Jackie. Thanks for holding. You're on with Dr. Wayne Dyer.
Hi, can you hear me?
Sure can.
Hello.
Oh, hi,
Jackie.
Wayne. Can you hear me?
I can.
Oh, my goodness. I'm shaking. Diana.
And we're off to Philadelphia in the morning. Do you know that song?
Oh, my gosh. I'm not nervous. I'm just so excited. I said if I get through, then I have to tell you what I wanted to tell you. But I want to start out by saying I'm a big fan.
Thank you.
For many years, read your books, listen to Hay House every week to your program because it gets me through my week.
Oh, that's nice.
And Diane, thank you for being there to help us get through it.
Oh, my pleasure.
Oh, my gosh. Wayne, I said if
dear.
I got through to this call, and it's so ironic that you were telling this wonderful story as you started today, that I want to tell you this only because this is hurting my heart so much. And because of the love and the wisdom that you impart to us about relationships, that I just want to tell you this really quick and ask for your loving wisdom about it. Over the Thanksgiving holiday at my daughter-in-law's house, my daughter and daughter-in-law had a dispute, and they had a shouting fight, and it was very upsetting. My teenage granddaughters were there and felt very sad. And, of course, I'm praying for peace, to happen. And in the meantime, my daughter, after everything, we left, she was angry with me because she said that I didn't stick up for her. I wasn't in her corner, and I should have said, how dare she say those things to you? And I just kind of don't react that way. I'm more of like a peacemaker.
Right.
I just want to see everyone be at peace. But if my daughter's telling me that this is hurting her so much because I'm not responding that way, I'm wondering what would be the more loving thing to do. And because I'm emotionally a little upset right now, I can't seem to pull on that.
Well, the loving thing to do is exactly what you did do, which is to not take sides and to just be an instrument of peace, and to try to have your daughter understand that that she doesn't need to have your approval or your support in order for her to feel good or to feel better but basically what she's saying to you, behind all of it is, Mom, if only you were different, in that moment, then I wouldn't have to be so unhappy. And she needs to understand that her unhappiness didn't come from the fact that you didn't support her. Her unhappiness comes from the fact that she allowed herself to get into a shouting match with her what is she, her sister-in-law?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, if you start going in there and apologizing and all that, but basically what you're doing is teaching her that her emotional upsetness is the result of what you did or didn't do. And she needs to really know and understand that that's just not the way it is. I always think that, like you take a situation like that and she's in the midst of a shouting match and then she gets all upset and there's that you really are in the role that you're in there with her. You're really nothing more than just a reflection of what it is that she is, what she is sending out there. In other words, I always tell people, look, go stand in front of a mirror and look in front of the mirror and frown. And then ask yourself, in order to make that frown go away on the person that I'm looking at in the mirror, do I go up to the reflection and try to make the mouth go up in order to make me feel better? Well, the fact is that you don't go to the mirror and look at the frown in the mirror, because there's nothing there. It's just a reflection of who you are. Her anger towards you is just it's just a reflection of something that she is doing to herself. And she really needs to know that, that your love for her has nothing to do with whether you agree or don't agree with the people in a shouting match, and that you had just as much love and care and concern for your son's wife as you do for your own daughter, and that it's not about choosing sides. I mean, that's the way I would look at it from a logical point of view. Now, there's a lot of emotion that gets involved in family, and it's like, you're not supporting me and you didn't do this, and that's the reason that I'm unhappy. But that's no different than saying the reason that I see a frown in the mirror is because I can't get the reflection to be what I want it to be. When she starts realizing that you don't have, she shouldn't be giving you that kind of power. And you certainly don't want to have that kind of power. Now you've got to always watch out every time that she might be getting upset because of the way that you're reacting. And we need to always be responsible for how we're feeling ourselves and not putting it on anybody else, even if it's your own mother or your own child and so on. That's the way I see it.
Well, Wayne, I have to say thank you so much for this, because I'm so emotionally upset because she felt as if she wanted to cut me off in a way, like she was saying, I won't talk to you unless you do this. But I just kept praying, and I said, wow, I can't believe that I got through to Wayne today, because at least I can feel, that when you give your advice like this, it's done through peace and love and in a godly way, so I can feel trusting of it. And
yeah. And she wants to make it even, and now she wants. This is really a reflection of what your daughter needs to really look at, and she might want to. You might want to tell her to listen to this show, because it'll air several times today, and all week. She needs, and now what she wants to do is exacerbate it and make it even worse by then cutting off her communication with her own mother, because you're not living up to what she thinks that you should be. It's that old thing that I've been saying for as long as I can remember being out in the public eye. When people say, if only you were more like me, then I wouldn't have to be unhappy with right now. If only you were seeing the world the way I see it, then I could be, I wouldn't have to be so depressed or so upset. So people go around putting their upsettedness on the reactions, the reflections that other people have in their lives. And once you explain to her that I am just about, I'm just about love, I'm just about peace, and it's not about choosing sides. This isn't a war that we're involved here. This is just an opportunity for all of us to live together in harmony and peace and kindness and joy, rather than in these other ways.
Thank you so much for that, Wayne.
Yeah.
How I feel, that's how wars are started. They start in little ways, and then they... Absolutely.
As a matter of fact, I think that your daughter needs to, whatever unhappy words were spoken between the two of them, I think the best thing that your daughter could do would be to send some flowers or something to her sister-in-law, and tell her that I have a loving heart, and I slipped back, and I apologize for it. That's the best way to. Yeah, she could end all of that very, very quickly.
Very quickly, that's right. I agree.
She could end it all very quickly by just sending love to everyone, because whatever the problem is, the solution is always in having a loving heart, and a loving heart is. Absolutely,
Wayne. Thank you. That's why I've resonated with all of your stuff over these years. Thank you so much for being there for me.
Have you seen my film on My Greatest Teacher, the story of finding my father? And
I haven't, no.
Have you watched The Shift? Have you seen The Shift?
Seen The Shift either. I have your books, but I haven't seen the movies.
You got to send. We're going to send you both of those movies for Thanksgiving.
God.
Happy Thanksgiving. Send them and give one of them to your daughter and tell her to lighten up.
Thank you so much, Wayne. God bless you both.
God bless you too. Namaste.
I can imagine how many confrontations like that must have happened all over the country.
Well, and it's family. It's that whole thing. I often said that I'm going to write a book, about family relationships. And calling it, your friends are God's way of apologizing for your relatives. Because
that can be so true.
When we get into situations with our relatives, whether they're sisters or siblings or parents or whatever, and we have all of these expectations that you're supposed to support me and you're supposed to do this, and if I say that, you're supposed to be there, and so on. And the fact is that we just have to accept each other for. Just because we happen to share the same genetics doesn't mean that we share all of the same views.
Right. Or also, what do you think about this? If you have a difficult family member who's treating you horribly, and I've had people say, well, that's your blood, you just have to deal with it. I don't think that's true. Do you?
No, not at all. In fact, the holidays are a great time for that. It's like I always say, every family has an Aunt Bertha or something. That's just the name that I picked. And when she comes over for Halloween, I was going to say, but for Thanksgiving or whatever, that what you want to do, and when she starts in on the kinds of things that are just upsetting to you, is just see how much love that you can send to this person. Just make up your mind in advance. You're not going to allow this person to get to you. I've been practicing that. I practice it when my kids come all the time. They say things sometimes that I don't like, and they make noises that I don't want, or they put on TV shows that I don't want. And I just say to myself, don't say anything. Don't say anything. Just love them. Just love them. That's all. That's all we got to do. And just let it go.
That's great advice. We'll be right back with Dr. Wayne Dyer, Wishes Fulfilled, right here on HayHouseRadio.com. Stay with us.
If you would like to hear more of Dr. Dyer's radio show, tune in to HayHouseRadio.com. To find out more about Dr. Wayne Dyer or any other Hay House author, please visit HayHouse.com. Thank you for listening.
Hi, listeners. We hope today's episode leaves you feeling inspired and ready to make important shifts in your life. To hear more from this author and many others, check out the Empower You Unlimited audio mobile app. You'll find thousands of audiobooks, guided meditations and visualizations, exclusive live lectures, and more to empower you to change your life for the better. Whether you want to find spiritual connection, heal your body, improve your sleep, or gain motivation to reach your goals, the tools you need are waiting right now in the app. You can listen free for 14 days when you start a trial today. Apple users go to hayhouse.com/Apple, and Android users go to hayhouse.com/Google. That's hayhouse.com/Apple for Apple devices and hayhouse.com/Google for Android.
Let Dr. Wayne W. Dyer take you on a voyage of discovery, where you can begin to tap into the amazing manifesting powers that you possess. As a loyal podcast listener, Hay House would like to offer the ebook version of Wishes Fulfilled, Mastering the Art of Manifesting, to you for free for a limited time to help you learn how to obtain what you truly desire. You're invited to open yourself up to a new way of experiencing life by imagining exactly what you would like to manifest for yourself. By using your imagination and practicing the art of assuming the feelings of your wishes being fulfilled, you will discover that you possess the ability to become the person you were destined to be. Get your free Wayne Dyer ebook now at hayhouse.com/manifest. That's hayhouse.com/manifest.
Welcome to the Dr. Wayne Dyer radio podcast. Discover the wisdom and remarkable insights of Dr. Dyer, world-renowned spiritual teacher and foremost authority on how the power of your mind creates your world.
I'm Diane Ray, and we're opening up the phone lines here to take your calls. So if you'd like to join the show and speak to Dr. Dyer, phone lines are just opening up, 866-254-1579. That's toll free in the U.S. or Canada. And also callers outside the U.S., you would just dial the U.S. country code, then 760-918-4300 to get in touch today. And Dr. Dyer, I'm happy to hear your voice. I'm glad you're able to do the show live today. Definitely been some challenges for you, and so I'm happy to hear you today.
I'm even happier to hear me.
You're happy to be there, right?
Right. I'm happy to be. You said we're doing it live. I said, oh, that's a good sign. I think we're,
Right. You are alive. That's true.
Yes, right.
But no, people have been worried.
For the first time in almost 4 decades, I had to cancel an appearance in Washington, D.C. We're going to make it up to the people by giving them passes and all kinds of things. And they were just very, very wonderful about it. I had several interventions on my neck, surgical interventions and injections, and it just didn't seem to be taking it, its healing path. It's just been deteriorating for the last 3 months or so, to a point where I was ready to do the PBS show, to tape the new show, and 90 minutes before I was on the ground writhing in pain again. It just it came back. An absolute miracle took place in order for me to be able to push that aside and come out and complete the show, which was wonderful. But being on an airplane was out of the question, and flying that far. So. It's been amazing. But, something happened that's related to what we've talked about on the show before, because my secretary, Maya, I've said that there have been so many people who have come to me with different methods that they have for how do you deal with this back, this neck thing that it's just getting progressively worse. Yeah. And I've gone to many people, energy healers and chiropractors and medical doctors and surgeons and anesthesiologists and injection specialists and on and on and went. And I kept telling Maya, look, she said, there's this woman who called. She's so concerned about you, and Deepak has recommended that you talk to this man. And she said, I absolutely know he can help you. And I said, Maya, I just can't. I was there in San Diego I stayed in the same hotel room for 2 weeks, just going through this effort to heal this thing that's just been living with me and just progressively incapacitating me. And so she called twice, and then finally, in the third time when she called, and she normally wouldn't call and pester me when I've told her, I don't want to be bothered. But she said, this woman is so insistent. She said, if you'll just call. So I took the number down, and she started to give me his name. She said his name is Pete, and then she said, I can't spell his last name, and it's just too complicated. And I said, well, give me the first letter. She said, E-G. I said, Igasco, Peter Igasco.
No, really?
Yes, no, you had told me how your husband had and he answered the phone. And he was there in California. He said, I guess he has 25 clinics around the country and around the world. And it's like he said, you have been so helpful in my wife's life. You just can't imagine. She had a very, very serious bout with cancer, and she watched you on public television. And she said that the one person alive that she would love to meet before she died was me, and how influential I had been, and so on. He said, where are you? Are you in Hawaii? Are you in Florida? And I said, no, I'm here in San Diego at the, in Carlsbad. At the hotel. He said, well, it's 10 miles from my home. He said, I'll be there within an hour. Now, this is the owner of all of these and the founder of the Igasco method.
Now, this is interesting.
It's fascinating because I've talked about what you had told me about your husband, and I've known about him and his work and so on. His name is Pete Igasco. It's Egoscue. So he just, an hour later, he was at my door, and he looked at me. He said, your problem is not your neck. He said, your neck is fine and your health is fine because, I'm in good health. My weight is where I want it to be. I'm gluten-free. Don't do drugs. No smoking. No, just watching, just staying as healthy as I possibly can. And everyone tells me I look healthier than ever, but this neck thing was just, he said, it's your right hip. He He said, your right hip is so shifted and out of balance. And, you know, for all the years that I was doing yoga, I could always do things with my left leg and make it do all kinds of things. With my right leg, I could, you know, it was like, you know, one side of me is a genius, the other side is just seriously retarded. You know, I mean, just like, and I'm right-handed on top of that. But he said your right hip is so off, and when it's off like that, he said it will. He said I've watched you on TV many times, and I would watch you walk around the stage, and I could tell just by looking at you that you were going to have serious back and neck issues because you're. And he just designed my own specific program for me, stayed there with me for 2.5 hours, and then put on a computer, sent me this menu, sort of a protocol of the exercises that I have to do. And they take like 50 minutes, and I have to do them every day. And then he's going to upgrade it and so on. He said, I'll have you out of that pain in 2 or 3 days, and you know, it'll seriously be reduced, and in a short time. He said it'll be gone, and you'll be able to do anything that you want. There is no reason for your body, you know, to be going through this. You're just totally misaligned, and it could be from an injury, it could be whatever it is. You're totally out of alignment. And so I've been doing these exercises, and I must say my pain level has been reduced by about 50. I'm able to do the show today. I was able to get on a plane and fly back to Maui after being there for 2.5 weeks in the same room. Going through.
Right, because I was supposed to pick you up that day.
Right, and that was, I couldn't, it wasn't even.
Yeah, you couldn't do it.
It was not possible. I could barely walk around the room. It was you know, just to get to the toilet was something I had to think about. That's how serious this thing was. And I knew I had a public television special to do, and then I had to fly to Washington, and the more of that pressure that I felt, the worse that things would get. And then I had 90 minutes before the show, I had an absolute miracle take place. My wife and 4 of my children were there because 3 of the children are a part of the show, and my wife was there. My wife and I have been separated for 13 years, but she's always been a very healing and just a very spiritual presence. And I kept asking when this was at 5 o'clock or 5:30, and we were to go on at 7. And I was on the ground just like screaming in pain, could hardly breathe. And I just said, find Marcy. And they did, and they brought her in. She knew exactly what to do in the moment that she came in. I mean, I was with this woman and watched her go through 5 childbirths. I saw her do it without ever making a sound, without ever making, you know, she just had a way of going within, and she kept reminding me, you're not the pain. Even though the pain was so excruciating, just let go of that. And she just sort of guided me through. And then her and 2 of my daughters just surrounded me. They just put their arms around me, and just in this incredibly loving time embrace, about 30 minutes, and the pain just subsided. I was able to do a photo shoot that I had to do with my daughter Serena, and to go out, and we started the show on time. And there were some serious glitches, which were setting me back a bit. Just sound things, just technical kinds of things in the taping of the show. But once that was over, I think it's one of the best shows that I've ever done. I think it's going to just be a wonderful gift for public television and for the country. It's called I Can See Clearly Now, and it's based upon that. And it was the day after that, after my children had left, after Marcy had left, and I was just wondering what I was going to do. I couldn't fly to Washington. I didn't think I could even fly. I couldn't fly back to Maui. I didn't think I could get on an airplane because on my way there, when they decompressed that plane, it was...
Oh, that must have been the worst.
Oh, my goodness. It was 6 hours of just... But with Pete, I mean, his name's Pete Igascu, and I have just great respect and love for this man. I mean, he kept saying all the time when he was in there treating me, and not really treating me. He said, "I'm not going to hurt you." He said, I'm just going to show you how these gentle exercises and very gentle stretches that you have to do to get your body realigned. And once you do, he said, you've just got a trapped nerve, and that nerve is just, it's just exposed there. And as you start realigning, and he said, and in just a few days, if you do these exercises religiously, and I'm doing that. I've got someone here on Maui that her name is Dee, and she's been my masseuse for years, and she's going to take me through it every single day. Right after the show, I go over there and I go through this. It's almost an hour of these exercises.
Right.
But it's the first time in maybe it's the first time in 3 or 4 months that I have felt that there's something happening here that is. And I had an intervention with John of God, to tell you the truth. It was like I had a surgical thing, and that was another amazing thing in the hotel from there. So
that happened here when you were in San Diego.
Absolutely, it did. And then the suture removal, very similar to when I had the leukemia 3 years ago. And I just think that those entities sent this man to him because there was just, first of all, the idea that he was only 10 miles away from me, that he would pick up his cell phone on a Friday night and within an hour devote his entire evening to me just because of what he felt was the impact that I had had on his wife. He said, you have touched the hearts and lives and bodies of so many millions of people. He said, I am honored to be here to serve you. And he's 68 years old himself and has, set up these clinics that are really based on, you don't have to think about surgery and you don't have to think about fusing your bones and all of that. It's very similar to John Sarno's work on healing back pain, only he's got very, very specific exercises for specific kinds of
they create the menu
pain.
for you, and you have to do it. And if
Absolutely.
you do it, you'll get better. I saw the results, and
with
if I hadn't seen it, I wouldn't believe it. I really wouldn't, because you don't think something so simple could really be that effective.
Right.
And the same thing, from like 6 painkillers a day, being incapacitated to back up to normal.
Through this whole process, because I knew I was going to do a public television specialist, so I haven't taken any pain pills.
I don't know how you could do that. But you're superhuman.
No, but they just mess up. They mess up my mind and
makes you groggy and.
Yeah, so I just didn't want to do that. I really felt, and 90 minutes before I went on Wednesday night, I just said, I held my children's hands, my wife, and I said, in order to be able to do this show, we're going to need a miracle. And Reed was right there in the room, so he watched Reed Tracy, who's the president and CEO of Hay House. He just watched, and I just went into a deep state, kind of a sort of a meditative prayer state. And I just said out loud, and my kids heard me and my wife heard me, I said, if I'm supposed to go through this pain, for whatever reason, I'm certainly willing to do that. And I'm listening every day and asking, what is it here to teach me? But if I could just get it so I'm able to, to do this show, because I think this show, I can see clearly now. I just think it's perhaps the most important thing that I've ever done. It's really about moving ourselves and our own lives toward a place of divine love, and also moving our world toward a place of divine love. I just watched a 2-hour show on the Buddha, and he said that, that there's the violence in the world exists because we have violence in our hearts. And if we can take the violence out of our hearts, we can end the violence that takes place in the world. We won't have anything but to express but love. And that's what this is about, and that's what really my life is dedicated to. And I had a meeting with my children the night before and said, this isn't just a job for me. This isn't something that I'm just going out there to promote myself. I said, this is what I feel deep within me, and I feel that this show and this book particularly, and I can see clearly now, is so significant for making the shift I spoke about and so much in the film. And the shift is towards this place of living in divine love. And we just stood there, and I said, we're going to need a miracle. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to. Now, the set was all built. There were some 40 people that are there, to create this entire thing. There's trucks outside.
And the audience too.
The audience is coming in. And meantime, I'm in the back, on the ground, in this deep, deep pain. And they found my wife, and when she walked in, and I just said this prayer out there. I need to have a miracle to take place so that I can. And the pain just started to subside. My wife was just guiding me through it. My children were holding me. Then all 4 of us just stood there and just with our arms around each other. And I said, "This is my family, and I'm asking for this. And if the pain has to come back immediately afterwards, I'll take the pain. I can live with the pain. I just want to be able to create the show that I've worked so hard, and so many people, including the producer of the show, Nikki, and they were just all wondering whether the show was going to go on. Well, it subsided, I was able to go out, and it was the very next day that Maya made that third phone call, and there was Pete Igasku in my hotel room. And I get back to Maui, and there's on the computer a complete menu of exactly what I'm to do every single day until I can talk to him, and he'll upgrade it to the next level. And I'm probably 50% less feeling less pain than I have in any day since perhaps June. And it was just getting progressively stronger and stronger and more debilitating and more immobilizing to a point where I was really wondering whether I'd be able to write or speak,
or do
or
events,
travel,
and that's so important to you.
Or anything. I mean, it was that kind of pain, like every time I moved my head. And it's still there a bit, but it's the miraculous part is that my wife happened to be there. She knew exactly what to do. As I said, I watched her give birth to 5 children, and she was amazing. She never made a peep. It was like she was deep within and knew how to go to that place within herself where you can overcome anything, any pain. And I watched her do it time after time after time, miraculously, without ever taking any drugs of any kind. And she's the mother of 7 of my children. And even though we've been separated, we speak almost every day, and we're very close. But this was, I really attribute the completion of the show to her. And then the very next day, I've got this man who gives up, his night with his family to come over and treat. And now he's, deeply involved in my life. So it's like it's what I can see clearly now is all about. When you step back and you can see that, when you're really aligned with who you are and what you're here to do, and you feel the excitement of that, you will be supported, and it will be effortless. And
right.
I was sitting out there on that stage and doing the show from an hour and a half or 2 hours before that on the ground in such pain that I couldn't even catch my breath. I couldn't even drink a glass of water. They had to the swallowing of it hurt my neck so much. They had to actually bring straws to me.
And dealing with that kind of pain is just
after a while, it's just it gives you a lot of compassion for people who live in chronic pain. And my mother did. In the last 10 years of her life, she had some severe chronic things going on in her that I used to feel so bad for her, and I'd watch her just trying to suppress the tears and so on. Unlike her, I didn't suppress the tears. I let them come.
Just let it out.
And I was screaming. And it was so it was just miraculous that my wife was there, that she knew exactly what to do, that my children were there to support me. And then the very next day, when I wondered, where is my life going? We've tried, they're now talking about surgery. They're talking, serious, spinal fusion kinds of things and all of this, and all things that just don't resonate with me. And he looked at, in 1 minute, within the first minute he looked at me, he said, and it's amazing because I had a session when I was down in Australia with William, what's the psychic's name? Williams, her last name is Williams.
Oh, Lisa Williams.
Lisa, yeah, mm-hmm. Lisa. She was in Australia, and she came up and kind of did a little reading with me, and Nick Ortner was in the room with me, and she looked. She said you've got a trapped nerve, and you've got a problem with your right hip. She had said that to me in Australia a couple of weeks before, just some kind of psychic thing, and so. Your right hip can make your left side of your neck feel really bad. That's
sure
that's a hard thing to grasp. But it's like we are just one system, and we're designed, because I was reading Pete's book. It's called Pain Free, where we are designed to be bipedal. To everything on the right side matches everything on the left side, and when one side gets so turned around and twisted, and you may not even know it, after years and years of walking on it and adjusting for it. These nerves start to get exposed, and when one of them does, it's just it's like having being stabbed in the back continuously.
Yes, and I've had kind of a painful, like we're both dealing with pain, you and I, at the same time.
Right.
And everyone was telling me, because I'm here at Hay House, even Louise was saying, well, you need to send love to your back and your leg. And, where are you not supported? And I kept thinking, what's my lesson here? Because I really do feel supported because I have a great staff and my husband's helping me and I'm doing the exercises too, like you, which I think is just amazing. And it's all been helping. And I think that my lesson was that I just needed to stop, because for me, I'll come here and I love what I do and I'll work 10, 11 hours. I'll stay here till 6:30 at night. And, and I was just going all the time and not really accepting help. And I think that might have been for me, learning to accept help and realizing you can't do everything all the time and that you have to take care of yourself. And sometimes you just need to rest. So it's interesting, the lessons. And I was reading, I've got Ram Dass's new book, of course, because I love Ram Dass. And he speaks. Polishing the Mirror.
Yeah, and I read the entire thing.
You did a great, intro to that. And he talks about, being the witness and not being, of the pain. And he lives with pain every day. And so that was really helpful too, to kind of read his take on it. So, I'm so glad you're feeling better. I'm excited that
feeling much better.
The exercises are working.
The exercises are working, but more than that, it's the miraculousness of it. It's you're right. It's the letting go. Canceling my appearance in Washington D.C. was just loaded me with just so much stress about because I know people fly there from all over the globe to come and hear me speak, and to not be there, and it's the very first time ever in hundreds, maybe thousands of speaking engagements over 4 decades that I've ever done such a thing.
I'm sure that wasn't easy to do at first.
And the people were so wonderful, and Nancy explained to them why I wasn't able to be there and what we were going to do. And there were one complaint, and not one person out of the 2,000+ people that were there even asked for refunds. They just they understood, and they just said, we just want him healthy, and we want him to live, and we want him to So it's so many blessings and so many things. It's like when you let go and you just turn this thing over to God, and which is what I had to do 90 minutes before the show. Just turn it over. And the most amazing words even came out of my mouth as I was asking for this miracle and asking for the energy of healing and feeling my wife, who, as I said, we've been separated for 13 years, feeling her embrace me and tell me, step back, observe the pain, just notice it. That which is observing it is not what it is. The pain is just something going on in your body. Who you are is transcendent. And she did it in such a sweet and peaceful and kind way. I was just very, very profoundly touched by it.
Sure, and accepting that energy, what she was giving you, she was giving you that healing.
Right. And then the very next day, when I'm just wondering, how am I going to get anywhere? I can't even get on a plane with this kind of pain because it came right back after the show. Then this whole thing about this phone call and Pete being right there and being 10 miles away and being in my room, this man who has like pain clinics all over the world he's actually, and it's like how it all comes back. It's like I did things 7-8 years ago that his wife, her name is Troy, Troy, saw me and read something that I had done years and years ago and was so touched by it. And now her husband is like, you can see the circuitousness of it and how it's all. It
really is.
Oh my goodness!
Amazing.
I just heard 1 minute.
Accidents.
We did the whole first half of the show.
Well, people wanted to know how you are, and there's been a lot of emails, and I got a ton of emails to us here at Hay House Radio of people wanting to know how you're doing and sending you healing love and vibes and all of that.
Well, I'm doing just fine, and I'll be in New York, and I'll be in Pasadena, and I'll be there with Abraham in November, and I'm seeing it all.
It's amazing,
and I'm starting to see the light at the end of this pain tunnel. So thank you for all of your prayers out there, and we're going to take just a short break.
If you would like to hear more of Dr. Dyer's radio show, tune in to hayhouseradio.com. To find out more about Dr. Wayne Dyer or any other Hay House author, please visit hayhouse.com. Thank you for listening.
Hi, listeners. We hope today's episode leaves you feeling inspired and ready to make important shifts in your life. To hear more from this author and many others, check out the Empower You Unlimited audio mobile app. You'll find thousands of audiobooks, guided meditations and visualizations, exclusive live lectures, and more to empower you to change your life for the better. Whether you want to find spiritual connection, heal your body, improve your sleep, or gain motivation to reach your goals, the tools you need are waiting right now in the app. You can listen free for 14 days when you start a trial today. Apple users go to heyhouse.com/Apple, and Android users go to heyhouse.com/Google. That's heyhouse.com/Apple for Apple devices and heyhouse.com/Google for Android.
Welcome to the Dr. Wayne Dyer radio podcast. Discover the wisdom and remarkable insights of Dr. Dyer, world-renowned spiritual teacher and foremost authority on how the power of your mind creates your world.
How are you today, Dr. Dyer?
I'm great. Couldn't be better. Just got out of the ocean. It was a really beautiful swim today.
Well, I'm feeling really good, too, because I just watched your movie last night. That was my Sunday night popcorn movie.
Also, no wonder. You used to be in Ambition. Now you sound like you're in Meaning. That's really great.
Exactly.
Well, what'd you think? I didn't know you watched it.
I got, of course, one of the premier before launch copies here.
Right,
I'm very lucky.
right.
I loved it. I really enjoyed it. I loved that it has this sort of indie artsy feel to it with this twist of spirituality. And it was really engrossing. And one thing that I just kept thinking about is how I'm not going to give away the whole plot line, but so much of what you were saying and what I was watching the characters do, because it's a real movie. They're real characters moving through their lives. It's like when I would watch them, I kept thinking about my own life. And so the movie really kept bringing it back to me. And of course, I start thinking and then I'm getting all, engaged. And so it just sort of happens on so many levels, the film. I don't know if that was the intention, but it worked for me very well that way.
It does, and almost everyone who's seen it, and very few have, because it won't even be available until January. But the ones who have, and the previews that we've sent people are they find it very compelling and very provocative and thought-provoking for everyone, and that was the idea behind it. I went to a movie the other night, there's this new movie out called Australia with Nicole Kidman and so on. And it's a long 3-hour movie, and I noticed that during the film I kept thinking, this couldn't happen. No, this couldn't happen. This was like, and they went so much for the dramatic, and have someone appear out of the mist, and then someone comes in out of the clouds, and then there's all the, and I kept thinking, well, of course, now that I'm a movie maker and a movie star, I'm much more of a critic. So,
right,
I was thinking
a little director there.
The difference between that film that I watched the other night, which was an entertaining film, and Ambition to Meaning, is that Ambition to Meaning is about real people, real events, real things that go on in people's lives, and also offers some opportunity for making a shift from just being focused on the ego and what's in it for me and what can I get and how much can I do and so on, into living a life of meaning, and trying to do that through the medium of film.
Okay, well, you said the word ego, so I have a funny little story to tell you. I was watching it with my daughter, who is 6 now, and right at the beginning of the film, she looks at me and says, "Mommy, what's ego?" And I think, oh, God, and I pause it. And I'm like, well, how do I tackle this one? So then I started talking to her, and I brought up personality, and then we had to explain what personality was. Then she asked me, well, Mommy, does God have personality? What's God's personality? And that stumped me. That was, I wondered and I was thinking, well, how would Wayne answer that one? What would you tell? How would you communicate that to a 6-year-old?
I would say that God is everything that ego isn't. That's what I would say. Ego is, the letters stand for edging God out. And when we allow the real authentic, the real person that we are inside, to run our lives, we don't worry so much about all of the things and appearances, and just live a life of purpose and meaning and happiness and joy. That's who we are.
Yeah. And one line you really, you said in there that really struck me was when you're moving from ambition to meaning, and of course that's the title of this movie, Ambition to Meaning, you say it's moving out of the ambition phase of life into the point where you are looking for doing something. You can still remain purposeful, but purposeful with meaning. And you call it the afternoon of your life where this occurs. And so my husband and I had a long discussion afterwards about when is this afternoon of your life? I mean, because it seems like people hit this point at different points in their life.
Absolutely. The morning of their life has nothing to do with age. The morning of our life is the time when we are very often focused on this ego and on what's in it for us and how much we make and who we're better than and how much we accumulate and so on. And that's all about ambition. And meaning is when we can have ambition, but we can have ambition about purpose and about meaning and about living a life that that makes a difference to other people and makes you feel good rather than just leaves you frustrated and fearful and anxious and sick and so on. Where you're living each and every day fulfilled and purposeful and knowing that your life is really making a difference. And the shift takes place for people. Some people, very frequently, it's in their early 30s, but it can be it can be in the teenage years. It can be in the 70s and 80s. Mm-hmm. And this movie, I think, will help people to realize that they can live a life of meaning, even if they do have a lot of ambition as well.
Right.
So.
And I have a wonderful call I have been staring at for a while now. Line 2, Holly from Nashville, Tennessee. Holly, I love the question I see up here on the screen. You going to stay with that question?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, good. Spit it out.
How you doing, Holly?
Hi, Dr. Dyer. Oh, wow. I can't believe I'm really talking to you.
You are.
I can't wait to see your movie.
Thank you. Me too.
Yay. You have just been instrumental in my spiritual growth, and I just thank you from the bottom of my heart for your service to the world.
You're so welcome. Thank you.
My question has to do with the past year. I've been trying to, it's actually a question I've come to some conclusions about myself, but I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Right.
I have been trying to reconcile the teachings of Abraham and the law of attraction, and you get what you think about, and positive affirmations, and reaching for a better feeling thought, and what I'm learning in my Buddhist meditation group, or what Debbie Ford is teaching, or what any good therapist teaches, which is some examination of your suffering, is important in order to transcend it and move into a place of forgiveness. Or in my in the Buddhist meditation group that I attend, they teach us to, if pain comes up for you, to sit with your pain. That it's okay not to try to affirm it away. And so I've kind of been struggling with these two, like, how do I sit with the pain without creating more pain, because that's what I'm focused on, right? But I also feel like some exploration of our suffering is important, or that simply moving to a better feeling thought and slapping some affirmations on top of it, not to trivialize affirmations, is sometimes feels like putting a Band-Aid on a deeper wound. And I'm just trying to reconcile the two.
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's something to think about. But I always have a difficulty with people attempting to defend suffering. It's like I've heard people say so many times, "I have a right to be miserable," and who would argue with that? Certainly, if you want to be miserable and if you want to suffer, but see, I think suffering comes from believing our thoughts about the way the world ought to be, the way other people ought to be, or the way things ought to be going, and so on. One of the things I've learned, especially in writing this new book, Excuses Be Gone, is, in fact, the display quote for the entire book says, "Don't believe everything you think." And almost all of the things that we call, quote, suffering, are really just lessons that we're going through in the moment, and while we're going through them, we have a choice. We can do something with them. We can say, all right, this is if I continue along this particular pattern, it's going to lead me into a higher place or into a better place. Or if I think about it in a different way, it's going to keep me in a place of misery, unhappiness, sickness, and so on. And all of that suffering stuff is we can spend an awful lot of our energy going over it and examining it and so on, but the fact is that almost all of it just comes from believing our thoughts, and our thoughts most of the time just simply aren't true. They don't hold up to Byron Katie does a really good job on this in something called The Work. And I've done a lot on this in this new paradigm, and this excuses be gone paradigm, is to look at any suffering that you have and ask yourself what kind of thoughts there are about it, that I'm saying shouldn't be there or are causing me to feel this way. And if you just ask yourself the very first question in the excuses be gone paradigm is it true? And can you be 100% certain that that thought is true? And the fact is that almost always you can't, I shouldn't say almost always, you can never make an absolute determination that the thought that I'm thinking is absolutely 100% true and holds up to that kind of a test. So now you have a choice, and the choice you can have is I can have a thought that is going to continue to have me suffer, and the thought may or may not be true. It likely isn't true. Or I can have another choice, which is to have a thought that may or not be true, but is going to lead me away from this place of suffering and to be in a place of fulfillment, of meaning, and so on. So why not take option number 2? Pick the thought that at least you may not be sure it's true or not true, but you can get yourself to a place that is going to align you with feeling good, with being closer to God, with feeling content, and so on. And almost all of that suffering stuff, that suffering kind of thinking, is our inability to project ourselves out into the future, think about how I would like this outcome to come, and then begin to get the feeling state of that, and to stay with that, and you can watch and make the suffering go away. I don't know that analyzing something. So anytime you analyze anything, the first 4 letters of analyze are anal. All right, and what we do when we analyze something is we tear it apart. We when what you're talking about, looking at whatever suffering is going on in your life and looking at all of the causes and all of this and all of that. But then you always get back, Holly, to the present moment. You get back to now. And so you figured it all out, and it was your mother's fault, or it was the way that she liked your sister better than you, or it was that you lived in an orphanage, or that your father was an alcoholic, or, whatever it is, you can analyze and go through all the kind of thing, but you're still left with this moment. And what am I going to do in this moment? And in this moment, you can either take this moment, fill it with all of the stuff that you're analyzing about all the things that happened to you in the past, or you can use this moment to project into the future and to begin to work from that future moment backwards to now and start to feel good about what it is that you would like to see. Even if it's like a very serious disease or whatever it is, you have a much better chance of transcending it if you get past the suffering thinking and the analyzing and the tearing it apart and bring the whole thing together instead of tearing it apart. And that, I don't know, that's my reaction. What is it that goes on in your own life, I would ask you, that causes you suffering, that you think more thinking about it is going to do something to make it go away or to make it better? Can you think of anything?
Honestly, the example that I was thinking of is my reaction as a metaphysician and a believer in the law of attraction, my reaction to other people that aren't maybe in this community yet. A very specific example is when I was first learning about the law of attraction and reading an Abraham book. It was right around the same time that The Secret came out. My best friend was going through a miscarriage. She had 2 miscarriages. She was trying to get pregnant. And she was in the middle of some serious suffering. And I felt at the time, like, looking back now, I feel like I maybe could have been a better friend to her had I just hugged her and had compassion for her suffering rather than trying to say, well, think about what you really want and cut out a picture of a baby and stick it under your pillow. And I was trying to use these metaphysical teachings to help her when really I think I could have just had compassion for her. And actually, the answer really came for me from an Abraham quote, to be honest. And I love Abraham's teachings. But the quote is, when you are looking for a solution, you are feeling positive emotion. But when you are looking at a problem, you're feeling negative emotion.
Right.
And that, to me, made sense, because there's also a Jack Kornfield quote, who's an American Buddhist, about discovering the power of the heart to hold all things. Sorrow, loneliness, happiness, and peace. And so that, I think that resolved it for me, was that it's the difference between wallowing in your suffering and having an awareness of it and covering it with love and compassion. And then that love and compassion is the higher frequency that the law of attraction will respond to, I'm hoping.
Yeah. See, this is one of the reasons that I didn't do The Secret and stayed away from it. And I was offered to, because I think The Secret missed something. And I think oftentimes even the application of the law of attraction misses something. And that's what I learned from Lao Tzu, is that he calls it living by the 4 cardinal virtues. That the only way that you ever get the door open, like you do not attract, this is my conclusion on this, you do not attract in life what you want. You attract what you are. Okay, so that, and being what you are is like living the virtues. And the virtues are, and you talked about it, first is reverence for all of life, which is really compassion, towards everything and everyone, and living that, so that if you had been thinking in terms of how can I best serve my friend who is going through a miscarriage at this time, compassion would have been what Lao Tzu would have urged you to do. Put your arms around her, let her know how much she is loved, how much she is cared, rather than giving her a lecture about, that she attracted this into her life because of something that she was thinking. The second thing is a natural sincerity. That's the second of the cardinal virtues, which is just manifested as pure honesty and kindness. And the third is gentleness. And the fourth is service to others. So that when you forget about yourself, let go of your ego, and do nothing but, like, if you look at your hands, just take right now a look at your hands, and look at both of your hands, and say, these are the hands of God. If I am a piece of God, these are the hands of God. What does God do with God's hands? If you could imagine God with hands, okay? Or Source with hands. All that Source can do with their hands, ever has done, is give. Is offer, is provide, is to be compassionate, is to be loving. And when you are like that, you align yourself then with Source energy, because it now recognizes what it is. It is also a giving medium. It is only giving and offering and serving and loving. And when you do that, that's when the angelic teachers, that's when the guides, that's when begin to connect with you, because you are now operating on the same wavelength that they are. And that's when all of the things that you would like to see show up in your life begin to manifest, because you are living from there rather than using this higher consciousness level to ask for something that I would like to have. Please give me this. Give me peace. Give me more love. Give me a BMW. Give me a Rolex, whatever it might be, which is what a lot of people did with the Secret. Instead of saying, if that's what you want to do, then you need to be thinking in terms of whatever it is that anybody else is going on, happening for them in their life, that the happiness that you wish for yourself, the joy that you wish for yourself, want it more for them than you want it for yourself. Act on that wanting, and then see how you feel by doing that, and then just watch what happens for you in your own life. And then it shows up, and you're not attached to it, and that's when you reach the highest levels. That's the place that I'm at in most of the time in my life right now. Does that make sense?
Yes, beautiful.
Yeah. So that's where I am. And that's what Excuses Be Gone is going to answer, I believe. It is really about living. It's about how to live the virtues in such a way that then you make the door open. That's when the door is open. The door, Lao Tzu says, as long as you are attached to the gross world, this world, the material world, the door will not open. Those angels will not find you, and you cannot find them. They seek you out. And the only time they seek you out is when you're acting like they do. And what is acting like they do? Living the cardinal virtues, reverence for all of life, honesty, kindness, gentleness, and service to others. By being that, that's when you attract what you are, and more comes into your life. And a little thing like a like an event that you're talking about with your friends. I don't mean to diminish it or trivialize it, but it's all in the perfection of the universe. When a child miscarriages, it's because the universe says it's not time, it's not right, there's something not correct here, and you learn to just accept and honor that, and start beginning to focus on serving those who did get here. Okay, sweetheart.
Thank you so much.
Great question. Can't wait for your reaction to the movie. Get out there. Ambition to
I
meaning.
can't wait to see it. I'll be there. Take care.
It's going to make you think,
God bless you, Holly.
Thanks.
Nice call.
Dr. Dyer, we have Gina who is waiting to speak with you now from Milwaukee. Gina, welcome. You are live with Dr. Wayne Dyer.
Hi, Dr. Dyer. It's so great to talk to you
Gina.
today. Hi.
Thank you. Milwaukee,
Wisconsin.
I'm going to give you a song that I remember from my youth. Are you ready?
Yes.
I'm from Milwaukee, and I ought to know it's what? You don't know that?
Gonna snow? I don't know. What?
No. It's Blatz beer wherever you go.
Oh, God.
Blatz beer from Milwaukee.
There is only one Milwaukee, right? Is there another? Was there like a Milwaukee, Kansas? I don't think so.
No, Wisconsin. The Cheeseheads. That's where all the Cheeseheads are up there.
Yes, that is true.
The Green Bay Packers fans, right?
Yes.
What's on your mind, dear?
My question is, I am having a lot of guilt. I would like to leave the relationship I am in with my husband. There has been alcohol abuse for a couple of years, and he hasn't wanted to change that for himself.
Mm-hmm.
But as I get closer and closer to making my final decision, there's just a lot of guilt and leaving the relationship, and we do have 2 kids together, and it's, the guilt becomes overwhelming, and I think that kind of holds me back from just kind of leaving.
Right. If you didn't have the drinking thing, would you? Is there any condition under which you could say you would stay with this man?
Any condition? Well,
I mean, if there were changes that he were to make or whatever.
Right. I would say definitely with the drinking.
It is. And have you been able to communicate that to him?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. But, and his response is?
Well, he doesn't see it as a problem for himself. So,
mm-hmm.
He just,
what form does the abuse take?
What form?
Yeah, is it physical? Does he hit you? And
no, he doesn't. He becomes verbally abusive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. So you've been thinking this for how long?
Probably a good year now.
Mm-hmm. And and what is it that stops you?
I guess it's more, I would say more guilt. And, thinking about my children, they're close to him. And I guess sometimes just thinking, his life would be miserable, if we just, all of a sudden left.
Mm-hmm. It might be. I mean, that's one option. Can you be certain that thought is true?
No.
That his life is going to be miserable. So what's it? So you can't be certain that his life is going to be miserable is a true thought. So why would you think a thought that isn't true? I mean, or that is probably not true, or it may or may not be true. What's the reverse of that thought? That his life will be
brilliant, happy.
Yeah.
Exciting.
Okay. And both of those are possibilities. So
right.
Every time you have a thought about the guilt, what you're trying to look at is what is the thing that is keeping me from making any move, and it's because you believe your thoughts about how terrible things are going to be, or how difficult it's going to be, or whether you can handle things financially. I don't know, any number of these kinds of thoughts, and you have these thoughts, and you start to believe them. But then when you start to test them, you begin to realize that they're just as likely that they're not true as that they are. So what you want to do is get to a place where you say to yourself, what is the best thing in the world for you? What is your name, Gina?
Yes.
Yeah. What is the best thing for Gina and her? What you said you have 2 children together? You have other children as well?
No, we just have 2 kids.
You have the 2 children, and how old are they?
3 and 8 months.
Mm-hmm. So do you see, what kind of thoughts do you have about being able to raise these children on your own and so on? Does that...
there are thoughts in where, being a single parent will be kind of challenging. Those thoughts come up, and maybe it'll be frustrating, taking them back and forth between two homes.
Mm-hmm. And what's the upside? What's the upside for you?
Well, the upside for me is I, won't have to be around, when he does turn verbally abusive or, the alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
Just things will be more peaceful for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And, my children don't have to be, don't have to grow up around that.
Yeah. Are you in love with this man?
It's kind of changed. I think the alcohol, because we don't have that kind of disconnect that, I don't feel emotionally connected. I can emotionally connect to him when he's like that.
Mm-hmm. And you feel you have a right to not be verbally abused by the person that you're living with, right? Yeah.
Right.
Which you absolutely do.
Right.
And the only way that you're going to be able to convey that to your husband is, are you married?
Yes.
Okay, so the only way you're going to be able to convey this to your husband is through behavior, not with words. Words don't work with addiction and with addicts generally, especially alcoholics. And if he's being verbally abusive with his alcohol, he's an alcoholic. Generally speaking, those the only way that you can get the message across is through your behavior, and that's what I would urge you to do. I really would. I would just say I would stop all of the thoughts about how fearful and how anxious and how terrible and how guilty you're going to feel about what's going on in his life and so on, and go within yourself and see your life playing out the way you want it to play out. Okay, get the vision first. All right, I've been on this theme all for this whole show. You get a vision of your life being. Not without your husband in it or anything, but you get a vision of your life as happy, as content, as you are being respected, as you are not being yelled at, as you're healthy, you're happy, you're financially doing well, and so on. And then go to the feeling level on that, and then hang on to that feeling. Hang on to that feeling is something that registers all over your body. Like in your stomach and in your heart and in your head and every place else, you start feeling better about your life and hang on to that feeling and just keep hanging on to the feeling of what it feels like to not have a verbally abusive person talking to you, especially under the influence of alcohol, and you will manifest the life that you want. It can't fail. If you can pay really strict attention to hanging on to that kind of a feeling. So, and then you will act upon that feeling. And you will take the children, or you will go someplace else, whatever plans, however you see it working out for yourself, or get yourself an apartment, and you will send a message to this man that you have too much respect for yourself, and you have too much respect for your children to continue to live in a situation where you are taking verbal abuse. And verbal abuse is just as bad as physical abuse. It's almost as bad as physical abuse. All right? And when you take action on that, and you then send a message to your husband, and the message you send is, I'm no longer willing to be the victim of somebody who needs to verbally abuse me because you can't control your alcohol intake. And it isn't a long talk. It's not a sitting down and trying to get everything figured out. It's not all the tears that go with that and all the anxiety and so on. It is demonstrating with your behavior that this is how I intend to be treated and how I intend to live my life. And I feel good about it. And you hang on to the good feeling. You just keep hanging on to that good feeling. And your husband then will take one of two paths. He will either get crazier and so on, and you'll know that this is someone you can't be with, or he'll wake up And he'll realize the most important treasures in his life are his wife and his children, and he has put himself in jeopardy of losing them over a simple thing like drinking too much, and he'll do something about it. Meantime, if you just sit around and worry about it and feel guilty about it and anxious about it, you're just going to get sicker and sicker and more depressed within yourself. And you have an option now, and you hang on to the feeling of what does it feel like to be a woman, a mother of 2 children, who is always treated with decency and respect, and which is what you're entitled to, and every woman is entitled to.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Dyer. That definitely just opened my mind, and I really appreciate it.
You teach people with behavior, not with words. You know, the words you've already had enough arguments. You've had enough tears. You know what it feels like to have someone castigate you and make you and try to make you feel inferior, and so you know what all of that feels like. You don't have to go around feeling like that anymore. You're now going to start projecting yourself ahead as a woman who is going to be respected and is going to be treated with the respect that she's entitled to, and what that feels like, and you hang on to that, and you'll act on that very quickly.
Wow.
Okay, babe?
Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to that.
To find out more about Dr. Wayne Dyer or any other Hay House author, please visit hayhouse.com. Thank you for listening.